What is up YouTube? I'm Royal, I'm rank 1 Wildrift, and welcome to a very special video. Today I'm going to be breaking down the future meta for patch 6.1. We have huge mage buffs, we have ranked season changes, we have unbelievable new items that are definitely going to be pushing a lot of characters into the S and God tiers, so let's quickly talk about them. So this is my tier list from the very last patch for the mid lane, and let's see how that's gonna change with these changes. Starting off with probably the biggest change of this patch, by far the biggest change. Every single mage in the game has received 10 bonus movement speed, including the young Timothy, by the way. They've put him in there with the mages. And for Timothy, this is huge. For Kale, this is huge. For Veigar, this is huge. Movement speed is a very, very important stat for mages because they're usually quite immobile, right? So increasing their movement speed allows them to kite out enemies better, to position better. Movement speed buffs on mages are extremely dangerous, especially the mages that want to go Infinity Orb and or Lich Bane. Why? Because those items give percent movement speed that's based on your base movement speed. So now Lich Bane, if you buy both Lich Bane and Infinity Orb, you get an extra 1 movement speed from these buffs, right? So while this might not seem like a big deal, right, and just 1 movement speed, but that's 1 movement speed just from these buffs that those items are getting. And on top of that, other movement speed percent increase items or runes like Ghost will be even more effective. 10 movement speed is Boots, Wildrift. It's an insane amount of movement speed that I think is like very underrated. Boots give 25 movement speed. Base boots give 25 movement speed. So you've got an equivalent of a third or even more of boots on every single mage in the game. This is like an unbelievable buff. I want to stretch the importance of this buff. This is the biggest change that we've seen in a while, and this pretty much pushes every single champion that got this buff almost a tier up. Did Rumble get it? Okay, good. Rumble didn't get it because Rumble was already OP, so I'm glad he didn't get it. Zoe, for example, and you have to keep in mind all of these mages usually have some ability that increases their movement speed. Zoe's second ability, Orianna's second ability, Kale's second ability, Karma's third ability, right? All of these champions, Seraphine as well, all of these champions get percent movement speed, which is based on base movement speed. So this is a massive change. Of course, Heimerdinger on his passive running on the turrets. Victor's first ability, like Victor was already kiting so well, and now he's getting a 10 movement speed buff. This is a crazy buff that has definitely gone under the radar. I haven't seen many people talk about how important and impactful this buff is, but it's gonna push all of these mages a tier up, and these melee non-mage mid laners will struggle against them. It's gonna be a lot harder for Yasuo and Yone to chase down the mage champions. It's gonna be even harder for Zad to hit his shurikens. It's gonna be hard for Akali to get those all-ins. It's gonna be easier to sidestep her third ability. Jace is gonna struggle with his kiting in and out of these laning phases against mages. Every single non-mage champion in the mid lane specifically will suffer, but also a lot of mages I believe will start popping up in the bot lane as well, because mages are just gonna be so much better than marksman champions going into the next patch. That the ideal meta, in my opinion, would be to see more mages in the bot lane with some bruisers in the top and jungle roles and a tank support maybe. But we'll go more into detail on that. Oh my god, Nad. As we look at the changes. I'm giving myself money with this ad, huge. Let's quickly go over the other gameplay changes, and then we'll talk about the rank changes. So Aurelion Sol, really big buffs, by the way. This is a very big buff. You get 0.5% extra max health damage on your main source of damage, your first ability. And of course, your Birth of Light damage while flying is also increased by 5%, which is huge buffs, by the way, on a champion that he did need some buffs, but I think the movement speed alone would have been very, very powerful. Even though he, stands still on his first ability, any movement speed that helps your position is good. So it seems like they're buffing the mages that haven't been doing as well, just to make sure that every mage is OP. So these are some nice buffs for early in Soul. He's going to be very impactful next patch. Probably going to be an S tier champion. The thing is that because so many S tier champions have been buffed, right? So many A tier and S tier champions have been buffed. My tier list is relative to other champions, right? So if they buff ASOL but they buff every other mage, then ASOL isn't as optimal compared to other mages, right? That have also been buffed. Irelia is getting some really, really nice buffs. These will help her a lot in the late game, which has been Irelia's main struggle. Of course, getting more health and more armor late game. But she's also getting some extra damage on max stacks in the early game, which will help. Aurelia is a very impressive champion in the early game. If you're able to get your max stacks and you do one of your basic combos with your first ability and third ability and you reset your first ability twice, you can do some insane damage. So adding like 15 damage to this combo in level 1, like 10 damage in the early levels, can go a long way. So this is gonna help her laning phase a lot. And this just improves her late game a little bit. Of course, the extra 100 damage in the late game won't be that impactful. But overall, these are some nice buffs for Irelia. And while I do expect her to be pretty good, I think she's really gonna struggle against a lot of these mage champions that have been recently buffed and have new items now. Moving on to Ziggs, we have some Ziggs buffs, which are, in my opinion, undeserved. He's getting 5% more ability power in his passive, which again is his first ability, so he's pretty much getting 5% ability power on a few of his first abilities, not all of them, only when it's up, right? It's not a huge buff, but it's definitely gonna help with his poke. His second ability is gonna be able to take down turrets at higher thresholds. What's really nice is that it's a huge buff level 1, right? And this is an ability that you don't max until you've already maxed all of your other spells. It's the ability you max last. So this 10% is actually quite impactful. And what is super important to consider is how it interacts with Herald, right? So now you need to take down one plate, drop the Herald, and then you can take the turret with a satchel charge. So it's gonna be super easy to take the mid lane turret with a Ziggs if your team gets Herald. But overall, this is a very, very nice change for Ziggs. And lowering the cooldown of his minefield is actually a very nice buff as well. It's going to help him control the objective areas a lot better. It's so hard to walk. Like when the Ziggs throws his third ability into a choke point, it's unbelievably hard to walk into the objective, right? So lowering this cooldown actually is pretty impactful. And these are some massive Ziggs buffs. I'm going to have to test him out a little bit more, but I'm definitely seeing Ziggs in S or God tier based on these buffs, plus the movement speed he got, plus a new item that might be hidden OP on Ziggs. Lastly, let's look at the Volibear buffs. I don't think Volibear necessarily needed buffs. I did think he was a pretty weak champion overall, even though everyone in my comments, again, like, there's so many of these noob champions that everyone in my comments tells me are OP when they're just awful, like Volibear, like Warwick. Like, it used to be Swain, but now Swain has received some massive buffs to make up for it. You guys keep telling me, oh, Volibear's too OP, you have him too low on your tier list every time. And then you see these champions getting buffed because they're actually not OP, they're actually pretty trash. But now Volibear will actually be strong, because these are some very big buffs, especially for the Baron lane. This is gonna make him super oppressive in the Baron lane, by the way. The bonus health damage is huge, and you're gonna be able to bully a lot of these bruisers and tanks that Volibear likes to bully. And the thing with Volibear is when he's oppressive, he's extremely oppressive because of his ultimate, because you can no longer hide under your turret. If Volibear has the damage to one-shot you, you're done for. You can't lane anymore. He's gonna dive you every single time with his ultimate. So when Volibear is oppressive, he's extremely oppressive. That's why they need to be super careful about how they buff him. And I think these buffs are definitely overboard. They're too much, especially for the Baron lane. He'll still be good in jungle because jungle is OP, right? So these are good buffs for the jungle as well. But I think these buffs are going to be pretty OP in the Baron lane. This is going to help him push out the wave a lot faster. I guess it's not that big of a buff in the early game, so it won't matter too much for the wave, but it's an extra additional damage, which is nice. But this buff is really insane. Really insane buff to his damage, and it's gonna help a lot against these bruiser and tank matchups. This buff doesn't really do anything, it's just a late game slight buff. 10% bonus attack damage and what is it, 50 and then 100 damage. This won't really do much. But again, we talked about the mage changes and how impactful they are. This is just a huge change that's gonna buff all of these champions, especially a few of them. Kayle, like the champions that really love movement speed, like Kayle, like Teemo, like Orianna, that loves kiting, right? Syndra, Twisted Fate, running at you with his gold card, and he also goes Lichbane, which increased movement speed, huge buff on Twisted Fate. Vladimir loves movement speed, especially when he gets Cosmic Drive as well. Huge buff to these champions. Victor loves kiting, huge buff on Victor, right? I also want to point out that the mage buffs, right, are making Kassadin and Galio even more OP, right? Because it's a mage meta. Galio did receive the bonus movement speed. Kassadin's more of an assassin, so he didn't. So when we look at my tier list, right, Kassadin's already in the god tier. I already consider him to be the best mid laner in the game. And now all of the champions he counters, right, these are all the champions that the Kassadin counters have gotten buffed and are going to have higher play rate. There will be more in the meta. Kassadin automatically gets a huge buff. And on top of Kassadin getting a huge buff, he's also getting a new item. Let's talk first about Malignance and then we'll talk about Bandle Fantasy. But Malignance is an item that I've been waiting to bring to Wildrift for a long time. I was hoping that I could play AP Corki with Malignance, but the rework came out, so we didn't get that. The Corki rework came out, so we didn't get that. But Malignance is an absolutely insane item for ultimate reliant champions. So what does Malignance do, right? Most importantly, and very underrated, is it gives you ability haste on your ultimate. So your ultimate has 20 ability haste and you'll have it up more often. So champions that love having their ultimate up as soon as possible get a huge buff from this item. It gives 75 AP, 400 max mana. So champions, that's a lot of mana by the way. 400 max mana is a lot of mana. Luden's Echo, right? If we look at Luden's Echo is the item that a lot of champions rush if they want mana, right? And that only gives 300 mana. So you get an extra 100 mana as compared to Luden's. But obviously most mages don't really need mana because of Boots of Mana. And I do want to talk about the new boots, right? The Ionian boots also received mana. I'll talk about that because that does impact quite a few champions. But since Malignance now gives 400 mana, champions that love mana, like the Kassadin, are gonna love this item. You get 20 ability haste normally, an extra 20 ability haste on your ultimate, like we talked about. The build is nice. You get the Lost Chapter Phoenix Codex build, very similar build to the. I guess no item really has this. Oh, a crown. Crown has this build, right? Yeah, and it's a good item build. And let's look at the passive, right? So every time you use your ultimate and you deal damage with it, the ground beneath them burns and deals magic damage of 60 plus 5% AP per second, and it reduces their magic damage by 10. Right? So if you jump on someone with Kassadin, your ulti will start burning their magic resist, and then you can do your combo and do more damage. And of course, your ulti is gonna have a lower cooldown. So the burn increases with the range of the burn increases with damage. So the more damage you deal, the bigger this like pool will become. And what you have to keep in mind is that there's a lot of champions that hugely benefit from this item. And my favorite one, right, which I think will be an absolute menace next patch, is the young Timothy. This is a huge buff for the young Timothy. When you play, like, he's mostly played as like an ambush mage, right? But he got nerfed last patch, I think, or 2 patches ago, and his ambushing became quite a bit weaker because of the damage nerfs. But now you can play him as an ultimate bot. You can get Leandries, you can get Malignance, and you can spam the entire game with Shrooms, making the game impossible for the enemy team. When your Shroom procs, Malignance also procs, they're slowed, so it's hard to get out of the puddle, and it's really OP. Another champion that benefits hugely from Malignance is Ahri. Where's Ahri? Ahri benefits huge from Malignance. Ahri is very ultimate dependent, and she can be extremely oppressive with her ultimate. So having that cooldown lowered and being able to spam her ulti a lot more definitely helps her out. Malignance will probably be a go-to item on Ahri. Moving on to the next item, which is, there we go, Bandle Fantasy. So this item gives very similar stats to Malignance. You get 5 more AP and you lose 100 max mana. So very similar stats. It also has a very nice build. You don't get a Findex Codex, instead you get Blasting Wand. And the passive is interesting, right? Damaging enemy champion with an active ability spawns a trap under their feet. After a brief delay, the trap deals magic damage equals to 100 plus 15% ability power, which is actually quite a bit. And there's an 8-second cooldown per target. So this item to me screams more poke, right? So it's kind of competing with Luden's Echo in that regard. And it can be quite decent on a few champions. The main one that comes to mind is Ziggs, right? The Ziggs kind of likes this item. He's able to set a lot of these traps. My main concern is, how does this item stack up against Infinity Orb, right? Because an item that Ziggs really liked was, or still really likes, is Cosmic Drive. Not Cosmic Drive, excuse me, Horizon Focus. Horizon Focus. But a big problem with building Horizon Focus on Ziggs, right? You're going Luden's, Horizon Focus, Death Cap, is that it deals less damage than Luden's Infinity Orb Death Cap. So this item pretty much, I want to see how it competes with Infinity Orb. Is it going to deal more damage than Infinity Orb? Or is it just going to deal less damage and there's no point to build it? Unless you really want it to win the ability case and some extra mana. Which of course goes a long way on champions like Ziggs that spam his abilities. And he usually doesn't want to go tier because it's too slow, too defensive. So I want to see how it competes with Infinity Orb. Maybe if you're playing against tankier champions, this might be better. But I think that's what it's going to boil down to. Does this item end up doing more damage than Infinity Orb, right? Moving on to the new enchant, which is Hextech GLP. This item is so toxic on so many champions. It used to exist in League of Legends, but they've removed it since because of how toxic it is on a lot of mages. So what it does is, it fires icy bolts that slow the enemy by quite a bit. They're slowed by 90%, decaying to 30% based on your ability power over 2 seconds. So the slow is really high to begin with, 90%. But it goes down to still 30% plus, which is still a big slow for 2 seconds. This item, I promise you now, will be getting nerfed. I think it's unreal OP, especially for only 500G gold cost. Obviously, it has to compete with items like Quicksilver, items like Protobelt, items like Stasis. So it has a lot of competition. But what you have to keep in mind is that this item guarantees your skill shots. It guarantees your skill shots and allows you to gain range. So let's say you're playing Syndra, right? Use this GLP item, you get a guaranteed stun on the slowed enemy. And this is really gonna hurt the champions that don't have mobility and aren't able to escape this slow. So these bruisers like Renekton, like Darius, all these champions that are like somewhat low mobility champions, bruisers and tanks, will suffer a lot because they won't be able to get on top of the mages ever, right? You use this slow and then you use your skill shots on the enemies. Imagine this on Ahri. You ult in with Malignance, Frostbolt to slow, Charm guaranteed. Like, what? What's the counterplay to this? Guaranteed Charm. You can't even sidestep it anymore because of the Frostbolt slow. Unbelievable item. I need to test out the range. I haven't tested out the range, but if it's a big range, Twisted Fate, Frostbolt. You saw the enemies, you run up them, gold card. Unbelievable, right? Frostbolt on Veigar, put them inside your cage. We'll have to see what the range looks like, but the slow is absolutely insane. Boots of Mana now give 18 bonus physical damage to minions. Let's be honest, last hitting in Wild Rift is insanely easy. If you're struggling with last hitting, you just need to go to practice and like practice it. This will help a lot if you're really struggling with last hitting, but it's already so easy to last hit in Wild Rift that this is really not needed in my opinion. Maybe I'm underestimating how hard it can be for newer players that haven't played MOBAs before, but you know what, it is what it is. Ionian Boots of Lucidity. This is a huge change, huge change. The main reason why every champion builds Boots of Mana is not necessarily because of the AP or the magic pen, that's nice, but you build it for the mana regen, because it pretty much makes it so you don't have any mana issues ever. And you can build whatever items you want, you're not stuck on a mage, on a mana item, right? Now this allows a lot of champions that really like cooldown reduction instead of damage to build Iron Boots of Lucidity. For example, you can build it on Veigar as a first item, so you can get more stacks, because Veigar loves having some ability haste in the early game to get his stacks going, right? Be able to farm every single minion with his abilities. So this, I'm not saying it's gonna give you an extra 55 stacks, which is the AP from Boots of Mana, but it's definitely something to consider, right? If you're going like a more utility-based Ahri build, where you want to be spamming your charm, this might help. Keep in mind that this Boots of Lucidity decrease your summoner spell cooldown. So champions like Annie that love to have their flash up as often as possible for flash tibbers. You can even pair up Malignance now. You can flash tibbers so often with Boots of Lucidity. And of course you have the mana now. A lot of supportive mid laners like Zillion that's gonna come out, right? Karma, Seraphine, right? If you want to play more supportive type mid laners, Boots of Lucidity could be a good choice now. And of course, let's talk quickly about how this is going to impact the Enchanter meta. Because Enchanters, they were kind of stuck in this place of I either have to go tier for my mana issues, but that's going to stall my build and I'm going to be pretty weak. Or I have to go Boots of Mana and give up my cooldown reduction, my ability haste, in exchange for more mana, more mana. So they were kind of stuck in this place of Boots of Mana will make me stronger early, but I won't have as much cooldown reduction later, right? But now they can just always go Ionian Boots of Lucidity. So this is a huge buff to champions like Lulu, champions like Janna, champions like Seraphine, Soraka, even Yuumi. This is an unbelievable buff to those champions that we already hate to play against those champions, right? Everybody hates the enchanters. Huge buff on Milio, right? All those enchanter champions. This allows them to always go out in Boots of Lucidity. They don't even have to consider Boots of Mana, right? So they get 30 ability haste that they win otherwise, and they don't care about giving up 50 AP and 8 Magic Pen, because Magic Pen is kind of weak on them anyway. And 50 AP, like those champions have very low AP scalings, especially Lulu. Lulu doesn't care about her AP scalings being high. She cares about spamming as many spells as she can. So this is a massive buff on these champions. Rylai's, this is a very, very welcome change. A big reason why Rylai's felt really bad to build is because of the magic penetration, right? When you're playing a mage, in the late game especially, you want to have that 35% magic penetration. Even that 28% magic penetration, right? You want to have, you want to be able to shred tanks. Especially on an item like Rylai's, its whole purpose is to kite out enemies, right? To slow them. You want to do these elongated fights. So not having that magic penetration really felt bad. But to compensate for that, they are lowering both the AP and the max health. So at least now, I think Rylai's is a niche item that can be built on a few champions. As before, I don't think it was even a consideration. However, I think now Rylai's can be a good item on some champions. The most obvious choice, and what I'm going to be building on is Katarina. I really like Rylai's Katarina. And the main issue is that you would give up quite a bit of damage. But you lose 5 AP and gain 7% armor penetration, which is a buff in terms of damage overall. Especially when you get into the late game. I do think that the problem with Rylai's is that a lot of champions that would like Rylai's already have slows in their kit. I guess this does help Aurelion Sol quite a lot, who's also gotten the movement speed buff. And he's also gotten the straight up buffs this patch. So on Aurelion Sol, this will be a very, very nice addition. But I think other than Aurelion Sol, I can't even imagine any other champion build it, because other champions that want to have that slow, like the Orianna, like the Syndra, they already have it in their kits. Like the Victor, they already have it in their kits, so they don't care about this. Silent Impact got a very, very nice change. This is actually a very impactful buff, right? This is mostly a buff. 10% movement speed for 1.5 seconds. It might not seem like a lot, but it actually is, because this is a minor rune, right? Giving a minor rune this much additional like utility and is like really, really high. The damage remains very similar from what I can tell. but the 10% movement speed is pretty impactful. I guess it's a little damage buff if I'm understanding the text correctly, which is nice. You get an additional 10%, additional 20%, but the main thing is the movement speed. So now Sudden Impact has gone back to being the go-to rune for assassins. A lot of assassins have kind of stopped building it. They would rather build like a precision tree and go for Gathering Storm, but this definitely will help a lot of assassins out that like this movement speed. Go in, do your damage, have that movement speed to escape, right? Transcendence is receiving a pretty noticeable nerf in my opinion. So you get the ability cooldown reduction earlier, but it's 5% less. It's not the end of the world, right? It's a small nerf. It's like a big and a small nerf depending on the champion. It depends on how reliant you were on the reduce 15% abilities cooldown. Now it's 10% instead of 15%. So it depends on how reliant you are on that. If you were just getting it for the extra 12 ability haste, then you're even happier. You get that earlier. You get at level 5. Overall, I think it's a welcome change. Won't do much. None of this actually really matters. The enchanted gates are now slightly moved. This evolve thing, I'm not sure if this actually does anything, to be honest. We'll see, I guess. This will give you decaying movement speed after you take the enchanted gates. So now you're just gonna be getting the game a little faster. They're trying to speed up how the game feels to not cause any breaks in your dopamine release. Ecstatic Scorpion, huge changes that's gonna impact split pushing quite a lot. So the Ecstatic Scorpion has been really OP, and they're nerfing it pretty hard from what I can tell. So the turret damage to the Ecstatic Scorpion is going down up from 100% to 80%. So it's going to be able to tank the turret a lot better. But what they've done is, before the turret used to prioritize minions and then the Scorpion. So the Scorpion could just whack the turret with a big minion wave and completely take a turret by itself. So you could use the Scorpion to split push for you while you group. A common strategy on second dragon actually was go get the Scorpion without pushing the wave and then go to dragon. So you get the Scorpion like 20 seconds before the dragon spawns and then you go dragon. If the enemy Baron laner doesn't defend the Scorpion and goes to the dragon to have a dragon fight, you get a free tier 2 turret. That was a very, very common strategy for Baron laners. Now it's going to be a lot harder to do that, because now the Scorpion, while it's tankier, it gets focused first by the turret, right? So it doesn't just split push by itself. Now the Scorpion is probably better when you're split pushing with it. So you can tank turret for you to do damage. Before, the minions would tank turret for the Scorpion to do damage. So this is a pretty big nerf to that type of strategy. And it's a pretty big nerf to the Scorpion in general if you're just leaving it as a split pusher. Now you have to be the one split pushing with it, which I think is what they were intending with the Scorpion to begin with. So it's a nice change. What you can even do now, even without minions, you can just get the Scorpion, just run up the turret and start whacking at it while the Scorpion tanks for quite a bit. Because it's just 20% tankier now. It's going to take like an extra 1 or 2 turret shots. So the Enchanted Gift, that's just PvP only. I'm not sure if that includes ranked, to be honest. But it seems like it's very similar to the... It seems like it's very similar to the Hextech toolkits that we're getting before. So this does nothing, this changes nothing. I'm not sure if it's even for ranked or it's just PvP only, but it doesn't really do anything anyway. We don't care about Unbound Frenzy. The single player option, this is nice. When you don't have internet, you can play single player. Okay, and skins, no one cares about skins. But let's also talk about the rank changes before I end this video. Rank changes, everybody loves rank changes. So the main interesting things about ranked is so ranked rewards are changing. So rewards are now easier to obtain, including ranked reward skins, which allow you to enjoy and focus more on your ranked climb. It will now only take 5 games to earn them. So if you don't like playing ranked, you can get your ranked rewards a lot easier. They removed the previous rewards, and the ranked store has now become the Collected Legends Redemption Store. So you get less free stuff, I guess. I don't really care about this, to be honest. I'm not sure if you guys care. They've added some weekly rewards, and they increased and improved the rewards available in the new and consolidated system. I guess we'll have to see what that means. Again, you have to play less ranked to get your skin if you don't like ranked, but I'm pretty sure most of my viewers like ranked. They added tier rewards and monthly ranking rewards for legendary ranked. I wonder what these rewards are. This could be really interesting, and this could motivate more players to play legendary ranked. This is something that I've been specifically saying is really important to me. Let's get legendary rank going. Let's get legendary rank going, because legendary ranked matchmaking is so much better than normal ranked matchmaking. So if these rewards are actually good, maybe Riot has listened. But we'll see what the rewards are gonna be. So there's some things that I like and some things I don't like. This is something I really like. We'll get to the things I don't like. So with the retirement of the season reward system, season reward boost cards will expire at the end of the new season, changing to XP boost cards, which I guess doesn't really matter. They mentioned in their annual letter, and this is something that if you follow me on X, I've been very critical about. They said at the beginning of the year that they're very interested in changing matchmaking, right? Improving matchmaking. And they haven't done anything since then. It's been 3 to 4 months, they haven't done anything. So now they're finally making some changes. However, these are the exact opposite of the changes we were hoping for and that we were kind of promised. So, Rising Star. You receive 1 bonus mark when you win a ranked game with an S rating in gold or lower. This doesn't matter. If you're gold or lower, you're playing versus bots anyway. So this does not matter. This is something that's actually kind of interesting. If your team composition is unbalanced, and your team is deemed unbalanced, a remake vote starts, right? And if a player on the team with the unbalanced team composition votes to remake, the game will be terminated and the EOG summary displayed. So this is really weird, because it doesn't seem like anyone's being punished for this, right? If your whole team picks ADCs or mages, it doesn't seem like anyone gets punished. So I wonder if people are gonna exploit this or what they're gonna do, because there doesn't seem to be a punishment associated with the remake. Like usually when somebody goes AFK and you remake, that AFK player gets a loss, right? So people don't abuse the system. So for more selected champions or marksmen or mages, your team is not in a full party. So if I queue up with 3 friends, right? And the ADC guy picks ADC, right? We have other roles. And we all pick a marksman. And we force a remake. We just waste people's time, right? Is this gonna be a thing? You guys underestimate how many trolls exist in Wild Rift. You know how easy it will be to abuse this? I hope that's not the case and there's some kind of safety thing, but I'm gonna get 2 of my friends going to challenger games that already take like 30 minutes to find a game in, like the sovereign games, and we're just gonna start remaking games just for fun, you know? Anyway, let's look at the legendary ranked updates, and this is what I hate the most. So, this is nice. Commander, Legendary Commander, Guardian, Legendary Master, Vanquisher, Legendary Grandmaster, Legendary Challenger, and the Legend tier remains unchanged. This is something that should have done from the beginning. No one knows what a Vanquisher is or what an Immortal is. People know Master, Grandmaster, Challenger. That's what they know in Wild Rift. So this is a very welcome change. What I would have liked is for these ranks to completely replace the normal ranked, and after you hit Master tier, the only way to get Grandmaster would be Legendary Q. The only way to get Challenger would be Legendary Q. But these are some nice changes. What I don't like is that they've created a however well you play, you get rewarded. So you get rewarded for playing well, which is something I hate. I think you should only be rewarded for winning. Nothing else should matter, winning or losing. Because when you reward players for achieving S or A ratings, right, players start to play more selfishly. They start to care more about their rating than to win the game. Sometimes in Wild Rift, you have to make sacrifices to win the game, right? Sometimes you have to let your teammates get more resources that are more well equipped to carry. If I have a Kai'Sa, right, if I have a Kai'Sa ADC that's getting really fed and I'm playing Jax and I'm feeding, I'm on 0-5. This incentivizes me to just spend the game farming the map, right? Farming the map and denying my Kai'Sa resources in an effort to get an A rating and achieve great player. Instead of letting Kai'Sa get all the resources, build tank, and try to be a frontliner and help my team win. But this makes me less willing to self-sacrifice, and this is what I hate about the system. It impacts the gameplay. It makes players more selfish. It makes players want to play champions that they can gather more resources with. and carry, because in case they lose, they've got an S or an A rating, they don't care, right? So I hate that they've brought this into Legendary Ranked. What made Legendary Ranked good, what made it have good matchmaking, was there's no fortitude. There's no loss prevention, right? That's what made matchmaking good. And they're just completely eliminating that now, which is honestly a shame. So what I'm predicting will happen is that Legendary Ranked, the matchmaking will eventually start getting worse and worse and worse, and it will be very similar to what normal ranked is today when we're going in this direction. Obviously, there's still a lot more that needs to happen for it to be as bad as normal ranked, but this is a step in the wrong direction. So now your current doesn't have to be 1,000 points or higher, your all time has to be 1,000 points or higher. So if you used to play a champion back in the day but you don't play them anymore, you'll still be able to play him in Legendary Ranked, which is nice. They're introducing new bonus welcome for players to Legendary Ranked. So, I mean, this is nice, I guess. It's kind of incentivizing people to get started in Legendary Ranked, but of course it's gonna inflate players a little more, which always sucks. And now you get the legend. So now if you were legend last season, and now you start with commander, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to climb. I don't fully hate this, but the whole point of a soft reset is to put players back into their correct ranks and make them achieve those higher ranks. So I'm not a big fan of these changes. These changes is what I hate about normal ranked, and it seems like they're actively ruining legendary ranked as well. That's what it seems like to me. Also now I think you get more champion score on legendary ranked, which doesn't really matter too much. Lastly, I want to talk quickly about the anti-cheat. So I'm now in Europe. I'm going to be playing on the European server, and I know that there's a lot of map hackers in the EU. You guys saw my video a while ago about the NA map hacker that like stream snipes streamers. So this seems to be a huge problem in the EU, and it seems like they're doing something about it. And they have this new Vanguard anti-cheat that if it detects a cheater, the game will end. And I'm assuming the cheater will be banned, right? And that's cool. That's cool. I'm cool with that. I don't know how effective this will be, because cheaters, especially in mobile games, are always, they seem to be a step ahead, right? They seem like they'll figure out how this Vanguard system works, and they're gonna immediately become better at their cheating and avoiding the anti-cheat detection. So I guess we'll see how this plays out. I am hopeful, and I do know that Riot takes cheating extremely seriously. So I am hopeful they will put a stop to this for good. If you guys do find cheaters in your games or somebody you suspect is map hacking, please report them and make a ticket. It does seem to work, right? It does seem to ban these players. And I know they take cheating seriously. However, on mobile, it is a little harder to detect and ban as compared to League of Legends or Valorant, right? So if you do find cheaters for now, make sure you report them, make sure you make a ticket about them, and hopefully Riot will make some progress here with the anti-cheat. I remain very hopeful because of Riot's history with dealing with cheaters, so I do remain hopeful, and I guess we'll see what happens. So that's it for the video. I hope you guys are excited for the new meta. I hope you're excited to see Rise as well. I'm very excited to play Rise. If you're excited for this new meta, this new patch, I really like the changes. I'm very happy with the gameplay changes, even though I think they've gone really overboard with the mages. That's what Wildrift is all about. It's meant to be wild. There's meant to be OP champions. Please leave your thoughts and comments below. I want to know what you guys think about these changes and have a discussion in the comments. I appreciate you for watching. Thank you so much. I'm gonna be streaming starting next week. We're gonna be climbing in the European ladder. So I appreciate you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe for more Wild Rift content.